Welcome back to Wicked Chronicles. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, make sure to check it out before diving into this next chapter. As a recap of part 1, Detective Elise Hart was called to investigate the shocking murder of Councilman Henry Watts, found dead in his locked study. At first glance, it looked like a simple case, but nothing in Blackridge City is ever simple. A poisoned glass of wine, a cryptic note, a crimson sigil painted on the wall with precision. Every clue pointed to something far more sinister than a political assassination. As Elise dug deeper, she uncovered whispers of the Crimson Vow, a secretive syndicate rumored to control the city's most powerful figures. The widow, Catherine Watts, seemed broken, but her grief masked something more. Her reactions were too controlled, her answers too precise. And when Elise discovered that the councilman's safe had been mysteriously emptied before the authorities arrived, it became clear someone was always one step ahead. Now, in part 2, Elise must navigate a city where deception is currency and trust is a dangerous gamble. The deeper she goes, the more she realizes this isn't just a murder investigation, it's a game, and she's the next player. Stay tuned because the hunt is about to get deadly. Elise returned to the precinct with her mind spinning. The councilman's cryptic message about the Crimson Vow, Catherine's suspicious reactions, and now the unexplained $2 million transfer to an offshore account. It all painted a picture that was becoming increasingly difficult to decipher. The precinct was its usual chaotic self, a cacophony of ringing phones, clacking keyboards, and murmured conversations. Elise walked past the bullpen toward her desk, where she had left her laptop running with a search query for Henry Watts' phone records. A small icon blinked on the screen. Her results had come in. But as she reviewed the records, her heart sank. Every call Watts had made in the last 2 weeks was mundane. Political contacts, family, a few anonymous tips. It was all too clean. Suspiciously clean. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples.
What am I missing?
Her train of thought was interrupted by Officer Mark Hayes, who approached her desk with an air of nervous energy.
Detective Hart.
He began holding out a tablet.
I've got the mansion's security footage from last night. Thought you'd want to take a look.
Elise straightened, taking the tablet from him.
Thanks, Hayes. Did you find anything unusual?
Hayes scratched the back of his neck, avoiding her gaze.
Not really. A few external cameras caught the rain, but the footage inside the study is weird. You'll see what I mean.
Elise tapped the screen, navigating to the footage. The first few minutes seemed normal. Henry Watts sitting at his desk, sipping from a glass of wine, his attention focused on something just out of frame. But then, abruptly, the video cut to static. The next clip picked up nearly 2 hours later, with the councilman's body already slumped over the desk.
What the hell?
Elise muttered, rewinding and replaying the footage. The timestamp on the video confirmed it. There was a 2-hour gap in the recording.
Do we know how this happened?
Her tone is sharper now.
Could be a technical glitch. Those old systems can be temperamental, especially during storms.
Storms don't selectively erase 2 hours of footage.
Elise shot back, narrowing her eyes at him. Before Hayes could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Another anonymous text. Your team isn't clean. Start with the one who brought you the footage. Cipher. Elise's eyes flicked up to Hayes, who was standing awkwardly in front of her desk, his hands shoved into his pockets.
Hayes, who else handled this footage before it got to me?
No one. I pulled it directly from the server.
Really?
Elise leaned forward, her gaze unrelenting.
Because I'm looking at a 2-hour gap that conveniently erases the exact window of time when Watts was killed. Either you're incredibly unlucky, or someone tampered with this footage before you got to it.
Hayes swallowed hard, his face pale.
Detective, I swear I didn't.
Save it until I figure out what's going on. You're off this case. Hand in your badge and gun to the captain.
Hayes opened his mouth to protest, but seemed to think better of it. He nodded stiffly and walked away, leaving Elise alone with her thoughts. Later that evening, Elise sat in her car in the precinct parking lot, staring at the tablet with the corrupted footage. She couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Hayes wasn't just incompetent, he was hiding something. Her phone buzzed again, and she half expected another message from Cypher. But this time, it was a photograph. The image was grainy, clearly taken from a distance, but it was unmistakable. Hayes was shaking hands with Victor Sloan, the Crimson Vow's infamous enforcer. Elise's stomach tightened. She had worked with Hayes for years. He was young, eager, sometimes careless, but this was something else entirely. A second message followed the photo. He's already chosen his side, you should too, Cypher. Elise sat back in her seat, her mind racing. If Hayes was involved with the Crimson Vow, how deep did his betrayal run? And if Cypher's warning was true, who else in the precinct could she trust? The next morning, Elise arrived at the precinct early, determined to confront Hayes and get answers. But when she reached his desk, it was empty. His personal belongings were gone, and his chair was pushed neatly under the desk.
Where's Hayes?
Elise asked one of the officers nearby.
He called in sick, said he wasn't feeling well.
Elise's jaw tightened.
Sick my ass.
She muttered, grabbing her phone and dialing Hayes's number. It went straight to voicemail. She stormed into the captain's office.
Captain, Hayes is gone. I think he's bolted.
The captain frowned.
Gone? What are you talking about?
I think he's working with the Crimson Vow. I have evidence linking him to Victor Sloan.
The captain's expression darkened.
Are you sure about this, Hart? That's a serious accusation.
I'm positive, but if we don't move fast, he's gonna disappear.
Elise spent the rest of the day trying to track Hayes's movements, but every lead turned into a dead end. His phone was off, his bank accounts untouched, and his apartment was empty. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. As night fell, Elise returned home, exhausted and frustrated. She poured herself a glass of wine and sank onto the couch, her mind replaying the events of the past 24 hours. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She grabbed it, half dreading what she might see. It was another text from Cypher. Hayes isn't your enemy. He's a symptom of the real problem. Keep digging, detective. You're closer than you think. Elise stared at the message, her pulse quickening. If Hayes wasn't the real enemy, then who was? And what did Cypher mean by closer than you think? As the rain began to fall outside her window, Elise realized she was no longer sure who she could trust, or if she was already too deep in a web she couldn't escape. Elise had been going over her notes in her small apartment, her desk littered with coffee mugs and stacks of files. The glow of her laptop screen cast eerie shadows across the room as she sifted through bank statements and crime scene reports, trying to piece together the puzzle of the Crimson Vow. The ringing phone cut through the silence like a knife. She grabbed it, the voice of dispatch crackling on the other end.
Detective Hart, we've got a homicide in Dockside Alley. Victim is Edward Reynolds. Informant.
Elise's heart sank. Eddie the Rat Reynolds had been a snitch for years, a man with a knack for knowing everyone's dirty secrets. If Eddie was dead, it wasn't a coincidence. It was a message.
I'm on my way.
The scene at Dockside Alley was grim. Rain drizzled down, mixing with the grime and refuse that littered the narrow, dimly lit street. Eddie's body was slumped against a rusted dumpster, his face partially obscured by the shadows. Officers were already cordoning off the area, their voices low and subdued. Elise ducked under the tape and approached the body. Eddie's eyes were wide open, frozen in an expression of panic. His clothes were soaked from the rain, but there was no blood, just a strange pallor to his skin. Poison, Elise thought immediately, her mind flashing back to Henry Watts. But what caught her attention most was the sigil painted on the dumpster behind him.
Same mark, same pattern?
One of the officers, a veteran named O'Malley, approached her.
No wallet on the guy, but we found this in his pocket.
He said, holding out a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a crumpled piece of paper. Elise took it, her eyes narrowing as she read the scrawled words, "Too close to the truth." Her pulse quickened. Eddie had been one of her most reliable informants, someone who always managed to sniff out useful intel. 2 nights ago, he had called her, panicked, claiming he had something big, something that would blow the roof off the precinct. Now, he was dead. As the forensic team worked on the body, Elise crouched beside Eddie, her gloved fingers tracing the ground around him. She noticed something small and metallic glinting in the faint light. It was a wristwatch. The band snapped, lying just out of reach of Eddie's hand. Flipping it over, she found a scratch on the underside. The letters etched in jagged handwriting, "Trust no one." Elise frowned. Eddie had been paranoid in life, but this felt like a deliberate message, something he had left behind, knowing his death was inevitable.
Detective Hart, got something you'll want to hear.
Elise stood, brushing off the rainwater that had collected on her knees, and followed him to one of the patrol cars, where an officer had set up a makeshift command post. O'Malley gestured to a portable radio.
The bartender at Eddie's usual haunt said he left with someone tonight. Tall guy, dark coat. They took the back exit. No ID, but the bartender thought he looked military.
Elise felt a pang of unease. Military? That didn't fit with the Crimson Vow's usual enforcers.
Get me the footage from the bar. And have someone sweep the area around the dumpster again. I want every piece of evidence, no matter how small.
Later at the precinct, Elise reviewed the footage from the bar. It was grainy and poorly lit, but she could make out Eddie sitting at the counter, his usual disheveled self. A man appeared behind him, tall and broad-shouldered, his face obscured by a hood. The two exchanged a few words before the man placed a hand on Eddie's shoulder, guiding him toward the back exit. Elise froze the frame, leaning closer to the screen. There was something familiar about the man's posture, the way he moved. She couldn't quite place it, but it gnawed at her. She ran the image through the precinct's facial recognition software, but the system came up blank. Whoever this man was, he was a ghost. Her phone buzzed on the desk beside her. She grabbed it, expecting another message from Cypher. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. "You're looking in the wrong place. Eddie was a pawn, not the player." She stared at the message, her frustration mounting. Cypher, or whoever was feeding her these cryptic messages, was playing a dangerous game. She fired back a response. "Who's the player then? Stop talking in riddles." The reply came almost instantly. "The man in the footage isn't one of mine, he's yours." Elise's blood ran cold. Hers? Her mind immediately went to the precinct. Was the man in the footage someone on her team? Someone she worked with every day? The thought sent a chill down her spine. Hours later, Elise sat in the dim light of her office, replaying the footage over and over. The way the man moved, the way he guided Eddie out of the bar, it was almost familiar. Her heart sank as a possibility she didn't want to consider crept into her mind. Could it be Leo? Her partner had been acting strange lately. Distracted, evasive. He had brushed off her questions about Eddie's last call, and now this? The pieces were starting to fit together, but they formed a picture Elise wasn't ready to face. She pulled up Leo's personnel file, her hands trembling slightly as she scrolled through his recent activity. There were gaps in his patrol logs, unexplained absences that hadn't raised any red flags before. But now they seemed damning. Her phone buzzed again, and this time the message was simple. "Trust no one." Elise leaned back in her chair, the weight of the words pressing down on her. Eddie's death wasn't just a warning, it was a distraction, and somewhere, deep within the precinct, someone was pulling the strings. Thanks for sticking with us through part 2 of Wicked Chronicles, The Crimson Vow. But if you thought things were intense before, what comes next will change everything. Elise Hart is no longer just investigating a murder. She's unraveling a conspiracy that reaches into the highest levels of power. The deeper she digs, the more she realizes that the Crimson Vow isn't just controlling Blackridge City. They're watching her. Secrets are starting to slip through the cracks. Henry Watts knew something dangerous enough to get him killed. His widow Catherine is hiding more than she's saying. And now Elise is being warned to back off. But Elise doesn't back off. In the next part, the hunt for the truth takes a deadly turn. Friendships will be tested, loyalties will be shattered, and Elise will come face to face with the people who really run this city. But as the bodies pile up, she'll be forced to ask herself, does she want the truth badly enough to die for it? Stay tuned. The deeper she goes, the deadlier it gets. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next part.